You know what song I've had stuck in my head because I've been on TikTok for nonstop, like scrolling. My brain is like definitely neurologically damaged right now.
Can you catch a vibe? That one? Or
Oh, no, but thank
Mhm.
you, not thank you for getting that stuck in my head once again. Wow. It's been okay. So it's been the ABCDEFU song, which I'm obsessed with. I think a lot of people are. If you haven't heard it, it's amazing.
I don't think I have, but maybe.
It is a bop, but
Okay.
also not to be dramatic, but I wanna die. Oh, I'm
This
so sorry.
bitch got me paying her rent.
This bitch.
I love the Silk Sonic album. I don't know if you've listened to it. The whole thing,
No,
bangers, start to finish. Just Bruno Mars, love him. Love him.
I'm obsessed.
Beautiful.
I'm
Anyway,
also Julia.
I'm Lex. Hello, this is the Peony. Welcome. Yay, we're
If
here.
you if you thought you were in the wrong place, you likely are. Just kidding. Welcome. We're happy you're here.
Thanks for being with us on this journey that we call life.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to start this journey called life by talking about death. Stick with me.
Oh
Stay
my
with
god.
me. Well, no,
Okay.
because we were thinking about, we have some guests lined up. We typically do conversations with guests, but today we're doing a solo episode or a duo episode, just the two of us. And I was thinking of like, what can we talk about? And there has been, so yesterday was Chadwick Boseman's birthday. I know
Yeah.
he's a huge inspiration to you as an actor.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, it was also a few days ago, one of my biggest inspirations, Virgil Abloh, an amazing fashion designer, musician, artist, passed away,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And so I was like, why don't we talk about how, like, what has inspired us, who has inspired us, but more importantly, what are the lessons that we've learned from those people that have allowed us to pursue these very difficult crafts, such as acting, such as makeup artistry and
Hmm.
writing and music, and all of the different things that we have going on that we really, really love, that is sometimes very hard to do, as a lot of the creatives on the show have attested to, because our society isn't equipped, it isn't set up, it isn't structured for artists. It doesn't support artists
Yeah.
necessarily. And so, how do you keep going? Where do you find inspiration? And who has inspired us to continue in spite of the world telling us we need to work 9 to 5s and wear pants?
Yeah. Uh, do you want to start with like who's the first person that you can remember who inspired you? Or rather, Julia, who's the first person that inspired you? Become a makeup
Okay,
artist.
this is easy. This is
Okay.
easy. The first person that inspired me, not to become a makeup artist, I'll get to those people, but the
Hmm.
first person that inspired me to ever pursue anything outside of math and tech and law and all of these things that my family really wanted me to focus on and go into was my grandmother.
Mm.
So I grew up, it was me, my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, and my stepdad. And but before my stepdad and my mom started dating, it was me, my mom, my grandparents. And my grandpa was a mechanical engineer. He built submarines, he designed them. My
Dope.
mom, always into finance, tech. She works at a huge financial corporation right now.
Hmm.
My grandma and I, though, that's the vibe. That's the energy.
Yeah.
So I'm February 6th is my birthday, Aquarius. What up? She was February 8th.
Oh.
And we were so close. Like, we would have joint birthday parties when I was growing up. And one of the things that I remember was when we first moved to this country, one of the first things she did was get a library card. And so she would take me after school, she would pick me up, she would get me pizza, because that's what you do when you grow up in New York.
Hmm.
And we would go to the public library, the Brooklyn Public Library. And there was a whole shelf, like not a shelf, a whole bookcase, a whole section devoted to Russian language novels, particularly Russian romance novels.
Ah.
And she would like literally pick one up off the shelf, read the back, be like, okay, yes or no, maybe flip to a random page, see how spicy it was. And she would do it to like every single book on the shelf until she picked out maybe like 7 or 8 that she wanted to take home. And while she was doing that, I was in the library, and I have always been much more decisive. I'm always like, okay, this is what I want. I would grab like 1 or 2 volumes of Nancy Drew, which shout out Nancy Drew, that book series taught me English.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how I learned to speak English. And other than that, I would like pick my 2 Nancy Drew books, sit off to the side, and I would read the fucking encyclopedia because of who I am as a person. And so this woman really instilled in me this appreciation for the written word, both as a reader, but also as a writer. She always encouraged me to creative write, to whenever I would read her my material, like she didn't speak that great English, but she would just be like, yeah, that's amazing. That's
Mhm.
so great. So this is a woman who in her country, she became a pharmacist. So she like failed to get into pharmacy school 3 times. She finally got in and she rocked it. But all she wanted to do, I think, was be a writer. And so she lived that life within the confines of like survival.
Yeah.
And she always encouraged me to live in my truth. So be a writer, be a reader. She really loved to cook. Her expression of love was cooking. Her and I would always sit and watch like Julia Child, or, there was this Italian chef, Lydia. We would watch Emerald. And so
Mhm.
she was the one that kind of showed me that like you can express yourself through writing. You can express yourself through art, through painting and drawing. You can express yourself through cooking. There are so many ways that you can express yourself that isn't tied to, okay, this is your career.
Mhm.
Because most of the other people in my life and in my family were like, my career is a strong part of my identity. This is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And my grandma was like, no, people are made of so much more.
Yep.
And she, the very valuable lesson that she imparted on me was when I was in my late 20s. She had very patiently just watched me stumble my way through life and think I wanted to go to law school and then decide not to go to law school and then be unemployed for a little while and party my face off and then work at a startup and then want to leave and do something else and become a makeup artist. And she always just very patiently watched and encouraged me. And I remember when I was moving to California, I was terrified to tell my mom. I was like, I'd never been this far away from home. Like, I had a job lined up, I had an apartment, but I was terrified. I thought that, my family would talk me out of it. They'd be like, no, you need to stay. You need to be here with us. And my grandma was like, I talked to her and I was like, hey, so like I got this opportunity and like I'm really scared to tell mom. Like I'm scared she's gonna like be mad at me that it's so far away. And I remember my grandma was just like, she'll be fine. Like we'll all be fine. Is this what you want to do? Do you want to move to Los Angeles? And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to move to Los Angeles. And she's like, I know you wanted to go to UCLA. Like you've been wanting to do that. And you decided to go to a school closer to home because you wanted to be here with us and like help us with our things.
Mhm.
And she was like, but you can't live your life for someone else. You
Yeah.
can't wait for all of us to die because, Russian culture, we're very extreme people, we're very dramatic. It all comes down to death. But she
Yeah.
was like, you can't wait for all of us to die to start living the life that you want for yourself.
Yeah.
So go And she's like, I'll grease the wheels with mom. Like, she'll be fine. But she was like, go live the life that you want to live. And as long as you're happy, you should not feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that she taught me. And honestly, it's a lesson that I'm still learning because I still feel so much guilt whenever I choose myself over anyone else. Whenever I decide, like, oh no, I'm going to close myself off in this room and work on my screenplay when my fiance is downstairs and he travels a lot for work. And I know our time that we get to spend with each other is very limited. So any moment that I'm not spending with him, I kind of feel a little guilty, like, oh, I should be treasuring these moments even though I'm doing something so beautiful and fulfilling, such as writing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I still struggle with that lesson a lot, but I'm learning to get better at it. And I'm learning to really take what she said to heart. And yeah, and she was a badass woman. Like, she basically, when she was ready to go, she was in her hospital bed and she got on FaceTime with me in California and she was like, "How you doing? You like your job? Like, are they paying you well? Cool. Like, do you like your boyfriend? Does he treat you well? Cool. Like, are you happy?" And once she was satisfied that I was happy in my life, she was like, "All right, I love you. Goodbye." And like, she was ready to go. And she had had similar conversations with my mom and my grandpa and like the people in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was like, all right, like, I'm good. It's time. And then she just dipped. Like, she legit just
Grandma.
bounced. Well, she had been fighting what eventually would metastasize into leukemia, but it was like a
Mm.
9 or 10 year struggle with this disorder that no one could figure out. Like, why is your blood this way? Why is your bone marrow this way? And eventually she was just like, I fought, I did all I could do, but like, every person I care about is in a good place right now. So I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm ready to be at peace. Like, that's who she's always
Yeah.
been, so selfless and caring. And so she was just like, you happy? Okay, cool. You happy? Okay, cool. Are you happy? Okay, cool. Peace. And she just, like,
Oh,
literally a few hours after I talked to her, she was like, I'm out. And she did.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know you've I gotta fix my bangs really quick. Ugh. I know you've talked about your grandma before, just like the impression that she left on you. And
Yeah.
she just like, I'm always so in awe of people who encourage the creativity in those around them, especially when it's sort of against the grain
Hmm.
and they're like champions for other people.
Yeah.
Sounds like such a
She's
dope lady.
she was an Aquarius through and through, and like, she dipped like an Aquarius would. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm ready. And then
Y'all are
like, I
good.
imagine like the harps were playing and her spirit just ascended somewhere back
Oh,
into the universe. Like, she just turned into stardust and just like
ugh,
boom.
ugh.
I know.
I love
I
that
know.
story. It's
I know.
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to share. I hope that,
Yeah.
anyone listening or watching this episode takes that lesson away as well. Like, don't feel guilty for chasing your dreams. Don't tell yourself that by being more, quote unquote productive or being what
Yeah.
society wants you to be or living your life for other people or other people's approval, like, don't believe that that's what will fulfill you, and don't feel guilt. And you know what? Maybe you will feel guilt, but don't hold on to it too tightly when
Yeah.
you do. Like, if you're doing something for yourself and you feel a little guilty, maybe you say, like, okay, I hear this. I acknowledge it, but also, like, what I'm doing right now, I need to do for me, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
hold space for it and then let it go.
Yeah. Well, and when you've been raised or conditioned, which I think a lot of women have, when you've
Mm-hmm.
been conditioned your whole life to like put other people in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you challenge that or you like flip the script on that, it's hard not to feel guilty, right? Because like we're
Yeah.
told that that's like your purpose is to put other people before you. So
Yes.
fighting to undo that or to unlearn that or just fighting against that in general is so hard. And I feel like that's something that I don't know if that feeling of guilt will ever go away. I think it will
Mm-hmm.
become easier over time, but especially when it's something creative, because now you've got two things against you, right? Like you're a woman, you're supposed to do XYZ
Mhm.
thing. And also like, well, being a creative isn't worth anything. So it's like these two big societal things sort of crashing down on you at
Yeah.
one time. It's all
Yeah.
bullshit, but like it
Yeah.
happens. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, like, the female suffragette movement and the feminist movement and all of that, like, I love it. I love that we have like, I don't need a husband to open a bank account or buy a house or do these things, but at the same time, the, like, societal expectations, like, now
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, yeah, you wanna go out and have a job and make all this money and be independent? Great." But then also, like, is your house clean? Are you cooking things from scratch? Like, are you a good wife, a good mother? So it's like it's almost like we didn't swap expectations, we just loaded more on.
Yeah. We
And
put it
it's
somewhere
like
else.
yeah, and so it's just like you add I agree with you, you add on top of that the creative piece and it's like who has the time?
Yeah.
And you have to make the time. You have if it's important for you. And I was reading because you know I'm doing the artist's way right now.
Yep.
I started week 5 today and I was reading and it was the chapter was literally all about this. And part of
Mm.
it was like, what will happen with your relationships with your loved ones when you don't allow yourself the time to be alone and to fill yourself, refill yourself in the way that fulfills you? So, creating or what have you. If you don't give yourself that time because of that guilt, because of whatever people expect of you, you will feel resentment towards your loved
Yep.
ones. Eventually, that resentment, if you keep up with it long enough, that resentment will turn into like these homicidal tendencies. This is what the book says.
Yeah. Yeah.
These homicidal tendencies of like, oh, I want to kill you, like, oh, you're ruining my life. And then ultimately, the final stage, if you don't continue to not address it, the final stage is you get into this like suicidal headspace where you go from, oh, I want to kill you to like, I don't feel like life is worth living anymore because you're just not fulfilled.
Mm.
And that's not to say that like having kids or having relationships isn't fulfilling. It is, but everyone needs that something that's just theirs
Yeah.
that fills them in a way that no one else can really understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like having those boundaries for yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
and it goes in anything. Like I had a conversation with a friend not too long ago about how earlier in our like not just our friendship, but earlier in time, I would get really resentful or really like protective when my friend groups from like college versus high school versus work started
Yeah.
intermingling. And it was one based on a fear of just like being forgotten or being left out or like getting replaced, which
Yeah.
that I could speak to that feeling in depth for a really long time. But it was based in that, but it was also based in like I was trying too much to fill myself up with other people and other things versus
Mhm.
just myself and like being comfortable in who I was alone, that it felt like anything that sort of maybe threatened a relationship or I saw as a threat, like it I took it personally, even though it wasn't, right? Like
Yeah.
now I'm in a much better like I love when my friends from like one area of my life meet somebody else,
Yeah.
especially if they're people that I'm like, oh, I can't wait for you guys to meet. Like I want to sit in on all of your conversations because I think you guys would just like it would be so dope. Um
You do that to me all the time.
yeah, I'm always like, oh, I want you to meet this person. But it so it's very different now, but it looking back on it, I'm like, oh, it a lot of it was that I had a hard time being by myself. I had a hard time. I didn't know who I was, so it
Yeah.
felt like my worth was based off of the relationships that I had with other people versus like no, my
Yes.
worth is based off of just me, and that's totally different. But that feeling of like that resentment,
Mhm.
I see it crop up in every now and then. I'm feeling it right now with work just because I haven't been good about like I'm turning off my notifications.
Mhm.
If you message me at 6 a.m., like I'm not going to see it until I properly log in for work, right? So it's like
Barf.
yeah, but that's on me. Like there are very simple things that I can do to make sure that I don't wake up and the first thing I see is that I have a Slack message.
Mhm.
So I caught myself getting resentful, and I was like, oh, hold on, like you actually do like your job, but the parameters, especially working from home, I know a lot of people have been feeling this way. You work from home, so like you can't like just leave work where it belongs, right? Because it's at your
Mhm.
kitchen table in my case. So again, things to like shift, like how do you set those boundaries? Um
Yeah.
and make time for yourself, make space for yourself so that way you're not feeling overwhelmed or resentful, and
Yeah.
then, feeling like you're not worthy of anything, because those feelings suck so much.
Mhm. Auto tune that shit. They suck.
Suck. Whatever the right thing is. Goofy.
Who
Yeah.
inspires
I
you?
uh yeah, for me it was and on the episode where I talked about acting, I think I went a lot into it, but for me it really was my mom in so many ways.
Mhm.
She was a lot like your grandma. She was a very creative person. She worked in kind of a corporate field, like she worked in healthcare and in insurance for a really long time, but um she would always like she loved reading. So a lot of times in the morning when I'd wake up, she'd be sitting at the kitchen table with her cup of coffee and her whatever like murder mystery she was reading, or her book on Queen Elizabeth I or Henry VIII. I swear to
Ooh,
God, I used to tell her all the time, like, Mom, you should go back to school and like get your master's and just be a professor of like Henry
the
VIII.
Tudors.
Yeah, the Tudors. Like she would read books and she'd be like, "Well, this is wrong." And I was like, "What do you mean it's wrong?" And she's like, "They didn't do their research." And I'm like, "What?" Like
Ooh,
she was wild. But she would like doodle, and she would draw and sketch, and she before I was born, she was a cellist, and I'd never heard her play. And
wow.
then I remember there were two times. One, it was a friend had like let me borrow their violin because I wanted to see if I wanted to learn how to play violin, and my mom picked it up. As far as I know, she'd never played violin, but because she played cello, she was able to just like play something, and it was beautiful. And then there was a time where
Amazing.
she picked up an acoustic guitar and she strummed a few like little notes and started playing it. I think it was Blackbird by the Beatles.
Oh,
Because the Beatles were like her favorite band. But she always like these little bursts of creativity would come out from her. And she was always her and my brother's also a musician. He's a guitar player and plays in a band, but both of them are always really supportive, because we were kind of like the weird little black sheep of the family, because all three of us were creative, and
mhm,
that wasn't super common in the rest of the family. But like my cousin, when he was a teenager, he like wanted to start a band, so my brother like mentored him and taught him how to play guitar. um but both of them were always so supportive, and my mom in particular, like I said, she if ever I had a hard time at rehearsal or didn't get the part that I wanted or whatever it was never like, well, I guess you're just like not going to do it anymore, I guess just give it up. It was always like, okay, let's push through this, like let's work on it, you're going to get rejected. Like she was always very honest about the conversations that we would have. Like she would always explain, like, this is part of being a creative person. Like this is part of being an actor. You're probably not going to get most of the roles that you go for. You're not
mhm,
going to book every audition. It's gonna suck, but that's part of the job. So you roll with it. And then when you do get a part, you work your ass off and you prove to people that like you are somebody that they want to work with. You prove to them that you deserve to be there, and they'll want to keep working with you.
mhm,
And so she was just, again, she never made it something that was she never talked about being a creative or acting as if it was too far-fetched or out of reach. Like
mhm,
she always talked about it like, this is absolutely something that you are capable of and that you should do and that you should follow your heart in. And when I was at community college, I was constantly like going back and forth between what major I wanted. Like for a while, I was a music major, and then I was like history, art history, English. Like I was constantly flipping around, and then eventually I went back to theater. And when I went back to it, I was like, Mom, I think I want to like focus on transferring to USC for theater. She was like, oh, thank God. Like it, and it wasn't a like, oh, thank God, like you finally picked something. It was like, yeah, like I was hoping that you've always loved that. Like I was hoping that that would be the thing you would want to go back to. And this was uh maybe like maybe a year before my mom got really sick and then wound up passing away. We were in the car, and it just came out of the blue. We were driving, and she just goes, Lex, promise me something. And I was like, sure. Like, she just picked me up from Hot Topic. It's like 10 p.m. at night. And I'm like, what am I promising right now? And she was like, promise me that you will do whatever you can to live your dream. Like, promise me that you will always put. Sorry, I'm
Oh
getting a little
man.
emotional in my eyeballs right now. But she's like, just promise me that you'll always follow your dreams, and that you will always like follow those passions that you have. And I cannot tell you how many times, like while working at a corporate job or whatever it is, I like hear her voice in my head. And I remind myself, like, a lot of the reason why I got into corporate was initially like I thought that that was what I wanted to do. Like I
Hmm.
was really thrilled to go into healthcare when I first did. And now it's become like just a for me at least right now, especially with the pandemic, it's become like a way to save up and move towards that goal. But I hear her in that moment in my head all the
Hmm.
time, and I just like I think about it a lot, and I just am so grateful for that work ethic that she put in me and the support, because I know so many people who didn't have that kind of support growing up or even
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like very fortunate to have had that. And to have somebody who, since I was a kid, was always like, oh, you want to try this? Okay. Like, if there was anything that I wanted to try and we had the means to do it, she was like, sure, let's give it a go, see if you like it. So
Yeah.
she never stifled that creativity. And yeah, there's been a lot where it's been like, you know, you have all those moments where you're like, what would mom say? Like,
Hmm.
those moments that
Yeah.
you kind of hold on to. So for me, she's been, I think, the biggest inspiration, because she's always been my biggest cheerleader. She's always been the
Hmm.
person who had my back 100% since I was really, really little.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is so beautiful. There is something to be said about people who will watch you stumble and fall and make mistakes and make judgments that don't
Mhm.
align with your like your own best interests, and will just be in the shadows. Like they'll just be there like, okay, if you want to talk, I'm here. If you want advice, I'm here. But they don't
Yeah.
put their own agenda on you. They don't pass judgment. They don't like say, okay, here, like this is the direction. They just love you enough to let you learn.
Hmm.
And it sounds like your mom was that for you. And that is so special. I'm so happy you had that.
Thanks. Yeah. She's a really like just a dope lady. Like there are times where, not to get too
Do
no, if
it.
I
Do
apologize if I start to
it.
cry. I don't apologize if I start to cry. Um
Let's all cry
so
together.
my mom passed away when I was 23, so I was really
Yeah.
young. And I miss her every single day. But the kind of like love and unconditional support that I had from her, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, yes, our time
Yeah.
together was super, super short, but the amount of like love and support and encouragement that she gave me and my brother is like something that I don't think a lot of people get to experience in their entire lifetime.
Yeah.
So I'm forever just like so, so fortunate to have had that. So yeah.
What is if you had to pick one super great, mega lesson of all lessons that she taught you, or like source, or like
Ooh.
quote, or source, or anything that like
Yep.
gives you the most inspiration, like when you do hear her voice?
Mm.
What is like the thing you hear most often, or what is the thing that maybe she said or did that you always keep returning to in your mind?
Yeah. I always return to um so my mom was also a goofy woman, and she used to, like, if we were man, she loved to dance. She loved to dance. Like, she before I was born, she was a belly dancer. She, like, knew all the
Belly or
Greek
ballet?
belly belly dancer.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
ooh,
yeah. Like shake
okay.
and shimmy. So she was a belly dancer, and she also knew a lot of like the Greek and some Russian dances too, because she worked at, I can't remember the name of the dance company, but it was Greek and Russian dances, and like I think Egyptian belly dance. So Egyptian belly dance is what she knew how to do, and but then she also knew a lot of Greek dances because uh we're or my family is Greek Orthodox. And at the Greek festival, you bust out those dances, and she would always like get out there, and she would drag me out. And as like a awkward 12-year-old, you're just like, I literally don't want to do this. So she would always dance, like always, wherever we were. Like sometimes it would just be at the house, and she would just start dancing because like a fun song would come on like on a commercial or something. And it would get to the point where like we'd be in the grocery store, and she'd be like, "Oh, Cat Stevens is on," and she would just like start dancing down the aisles. And I, like, as a
Yes.
young preteen, I was like, "Oh, this is so embarrassing." And I remember there was one time, I think we were in Macy's, and we were walking through the perfume aisle, and the Rolling Stones was on, and she was just like getting down, and I was like,
Yes.
"Oh god, this is so embarrassing," but I was laughing and like having a good time, and the ladies behind the counter were losing it. They were like, "Oh my god, we love you." And I remember the first time, I was probably 14, where I decided to like dance with her, and that
Mhm.
like memory, and the ladies behind the counter danced with us, and like that was the kind of sort of like wild child free spirit she had, where she what I love is that she, even though I was embarrassed as a kid, she never stopped dancing until I danced with her.
Oh,
Right. And then after that, like anytime she would start dancing, I would start dancing. So like, or vice versa. And so I just, I stopped being embarrassed by it, and I just started having fun with her. And
yeah.
I just love that she didn't give a shit if somebody else was embarrassed or like was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's so awkward. Like she was so comfortable just sort of expressing herself and having a
Mhm.
good time. And I think that's something that like always sticks with me, is that sort of like vibrant energy that she had.
'Cause that's goals, right? Like, we all wanna
Yeah.
just live in our true selves and not care about anyone else's opinions, and
Yeah.
those are the people I admire the most because I feel like I'm working towards that, but I'm still not all the way there, right? Like, I still
Yeah.
feel fear sometimes, but you have those people that just live life on their own terms, and anyone that's a hater of that, I feel like those
Hmm.
are the people that want to, but
Yeah.
can't, and just,
Yeah.
like, choose resentment instead of, "Well, let me look at myself and see why can't I?"
Yeah. That's, I mean, that's about them, right? Like it's not about you.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that like she taught me, I don't know, if I think you and I have seen a couple of shows together, but and I've gotten comments on it. If you invite me to your improv show or to your comedy show or to your play, and there's a
Mhm.
moment that is really funny, I'm gonna laugh, and I'm gonna laugh loud, and I'm not gonna like
Yes.
hold it in, because one, like I know as a performer, hearing that laughter, it's such like a, you just kind of feel yourself like
Yes.
go, whew, okay, I'm doing it right. I'm doing something right.
Mhm.
But that was something that she taught me too, was like, if you're gonna go support your friends and they do something that makes you like, that you think is funny, or that makes you cry, like don't be afraid to show those emotions when you're seeing that art, because it lets those people know like it means something to you.
Yeah.
um so all of us say, if you ever need somebody at your improv show to laugh really loud, as long as it's funny, like I'm not gonna fake laugh, but let me know and I'll be there. But yeah, she just was very much about like don't be afraid to express your joy, express like the fact that you are moved or touched by art, because
Yeah.
it matters so much to people creating it and the other people around it. Like I've had actors come up to me after shows and they're like, I heard you laughing in the audience and I knew it was you. And I was so excited that you were here. I'm like, oh, cool.
The next time you have a show with Second City, I'm just gonna roll up and I'm gonna sit in the back and I'm just gonna I'm gonna come like a little bit later when the lights are already down. I'm gonna just
mm.
scoot into the back. And then whenever you have a part and it's funny, I'm just gonna laugh. And then when everyone stops laughing, I'm just gonna be like, that girl's so funny. And I'm just gonna like very
Hype me up.
softly, supportively heckle you from the back
Oh, thank
in
you.
the dark.
I love a gentle heckle. It's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. That's where
Yeah.
I'm at.
Is there anything about like with your grandma that really sort of stands out or that you hold on to in
Oh,
particular?
oh man.
Quote.
That's such a pointed question. And I mean, I think the biggest thing that I remember is like her cooking for people. Like food is
Mm.
my love language. Food
Mm-hmm.
is, I'm a very passionate eater. My wardrobe will tell you that because I always end up dropping sauce on myself. Like, and whenever I eat, like if I like it, it's very
Mm-hmm.
similar to you when you're like at an improv show. If I'm somewhere and I take a bite of something and it is just so incredible, like I will have an experience. Like I'll take a little
Mm-hmm.
oh, oh, that's so good. Oh, did you try this? You have to try this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll have like a whole experience. And Garrett always teases me about it. And then inevitably I end up like dropping stuff on my shirt because I'm just like so passionate about food.
Yeah.
And I remember very vividly, like she, whether she was like taking me for pizza after school or whether she was cooking for me, like she would sit there and she would literally just watch me eat. And while I was eating, she would just like ask me questions and she would just be like, okay, like how was school? And I'm like
Mm-hmm.
eating delicious food with this woman that just has so much love. And like to this day, I do this as well. If I
Mm-hmm.
cook for people, I never take the first bite. Even if I order something at a restaurant, I
Mm.
never take the first bite. I always cut off pieces and put it on other people's plates to be like, oh my God, here, you want to try some? Try some of this, try some of that. Garrett gets a little annoyed with me about it because he's always like, it's your steak. Like, you should have the first bite. And I'm like, no, 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 you try it, you try it. And so I get that from her. And I think it's like, what I learned from her is just when you spend time with people and you're genuinely present with them, like if
Mm-hmm.
you're having a meal with them, put your phones away. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you're laying on the couch watching a movie, like put your phones away. Like there is nothing more rare in this day and age and yet more powerful than spending time with someone and being fully present for them.
Mm-hmm.
And she always was. Like she was the one person in my life that everyone was always running around and hustling. I mean, I'm from New York. Like everybody's always, I got things to do. I gotta
Yeah.
go. I gotta do this. I gotta go here. Everybody's like always multitasking or like even when they're there, they're somewhere else. And my grandma, I remember she would sit down. She wouldn't eat anything herself, but she would sit there and she would fold her hands in front of her and she would just like look at you. And the way that she would look at you was, it was just like, I love you. I love you so much. There is nothing that I would rather do with my life than be here right now, sitting at this table with you, talking to you, feeding you. You are the most important thing to me right now. And that I think is it's so impactful because we don't give each other enough of that anymore. And especially, we were quarantining. A lot of us still are. Like we're in a pandemic. So many of us are removed from each other.
Yeah.
And we have this technology where like someone asks a question, what's the first thing that anyone at the table does, right? Pulls out their phone, starts to look up the answer.
Mhm.
Think of the last time that you sat with someone, like really sat with someone,
Mhm.
looked at them across a table, and just saw them,
Mm.
and you were there with them the whole time. Think of the last time you did that, because I bet you it's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah.
Everyone out there listening, think about it.
Yeah.
But yet, think about the last time you did. Was that not one of the most, talk about like refilling your heart with something that gives you so much joy? Was that not
Yeah.
one of the best experiences?
Yeah. It
I
was. Ugh.
When I was in Cancun recently with my mom, we were sitting at dinner, and usually, yeah, we have our phones out or whatever. So we're sitting at dinner, and I'm trying to make small talk with her, and I'm just like, so, like, it was towards the end of the trip, and I remember this. I was like, so, what were some of your favorite parts about the trip? And she
Mhm.
just like answered the question, and I was like, oh, okay, like, what are some things that maybe like could have been better? And she goes, are you interviewing me for your podcast? And I'm like, no, I'm literally just trying to have a connection. But I feel like so many of us have forgotten what that's like.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember most of her and what she taught me. And to this day, I love to, whenever I have a meal with someone, I love to sit at a table with them, not in front of the TV, which Garrett and I do all the time, and I can't stand it, but like not in front of the TV, not near a screen, not running off to do something else, but like sit at a table, no devices, and just look at each other and talk to each other and be there for each other. Because I've lost a lot of really important people in my life. And if I could have the opportunity to sit across the table for just a few minutes and have that person's full attention, once again, just one more time, I would I would give anything. Like, I would
Yeah.
give my life for that opportunity.
Yep. Yeah. That sorry. That reminded me of one of my favorite times, and like to this day I still love it. I love when there's a power outage. I love it. Like,
Yeah,
and especially when the Wi-Fi goes out and you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, my phone's almost dead." Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And I love it because when that would happen, like when I was a kid growing up, that was story time. That was,
yeah,
we would find every single candle we had in the house and we would just sit on the couch and tell story. Like my mom would tell stories. And
yeah,
so to me, like when the power goes out, I'm just like, ooh, this is time. This is time where you can't be distracted by anything else because
yeah,
you literally can't.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I know, how many times do we sit there and we're maybe doing something and we just reach for our phone? And
yeah,
it's
I
like
do it all the time.
instinctive. I do it all the time too. It's not even like I'm not going to look anything up. I'm literally just like looking at my phone, or like my phone will be near me and I'll just tap the screen. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here sitting with you. We are recording a podcast
Mm-hmm.
that listeners will hopefully give their time to us, which is such a privilege. And yet my phone is right next to me, and every once in a while I just tap the screen and see. Even if I have a notification, which I do, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to read the
Yeah,
message. I'm not, you know what I mean? But I still like tap it. It's like a security blanket. Like, I'm just making sure
yeah,
it's here, it's functioning,
yep,
so
yeah. There's still
yeah,
connection. And I feel like,
no,
especially because of the quarantine, it is like
yeah,
that's for a lot of us, that's been the way that we connect with other people,
yeah,
has been digitally.
yeah.
So, power outages during a quarantine, I'm sure aren't super fun, but
No, especially not in the hospitals. Sorry.
oh, yeah. Well, thankfully a lot of hospitals have backup generators
Yeah.
for that reason
Yeah.
specifically. But yeah, that like that impulse. I mean, I do it all the time. I'll like go to pick up my phone to call a vendor or whatever, and then the
Yeah.
next thing I know, I'm on Twitter and I'm like spiraling through all of the social media platforms. I'm like, what am
Haters.
I doing?
Yeah.
Like, hold on, this is not what I came here for. Like,
I
it's such
know.
an impulse now. But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. If oh man, those moments of just like sitting at a table with somebody that you really care about and just being able to like talk to them again is so
Listen, I
important.
mentioned this to you and Yasmin last week. I don't know if we got it on air or not, but my
Mhm.
dream is to just like rent out a huge house in Joshua Tree
Mhm.
with like no Wi-Fi or knock the Wi-Fi out and just get all of these amazing people that we've had the pleasure of meeting
Mhm.
through this podcast. Get Yasmin out, get, you know, the Melissas out, get, you
Mhm.
know, Laura and Ashley out, get, you know, get our
Everybody.
dope ass friends from another fucking horror podcast. Get them out 100%. Shout out Amy and Monique. But like get all these amazing women in
Mhm.
one space in this huge house in the desert for like a long weekend or something, and we
Mhm.
just like fucking vibe, and we just they get to know each other, we get to know everyone, and like we just spend time together. We make s'mores, like I cook for everyone, Monique bartends for everyone, no pressure Monique, but like that's what we do. We just like
Yeah.
the peony retreat, let's get it.
Uh, how do
I know.
we Did anybody want to sponsor us for that? That would be pretty
Yeah,
rad.
please,
Uh,
please.
fuck
Maybe
yeah.
we
Who?
save our shekels and make it happen. But I'm also noticing like not hating on the fellas that have been our guests. We love you so much.
Yes.
But I love the amazing, powerful women. Most of our guests have been women, majority
Mhm.
of them. And I just love the women we've gotten a chance to meet. And like this episode, I know we started out talking about people that have inspired us, and the idea came from two men like
Yeah.
inspired by, you know, men that we admired, but like this is just this episode I just want to dedicate it to the women out there, the women
Yeah.
who are juggling it all, who are struggling with it all, who are showing up day after day for themselves. And yeah, I mean, I think I want you out there to make us the same promise that Lex made her mom.
Promise you'll follow
Promise
your
us.
dreams.
Always follow your dreams. That's what's up. I gotta cry. I gotta take a break and cry for a little bit. Should we even do recos?
um, well, my reco is actually tied to what you were talking about with food, so I'm happy to talk about
Hit
it.
me with it. Hit me with it.
Yeah, so I the other this past weekend I went grocery shopping and I had all my shit in my basket, and then I was like, man, I really want like a Greek salad. And then I was like, man, I just want like Greek food. And so
Yes.
and part of it was like, it's the holidays. It's when I miss my mom the most.
Mm-hmm.
Miss her cooking. So I just went and I got stuff like nothing crazy, just like some chicken, some veggies, some hummus and tzatziki sauce and like pita.
Yum.
And I've just been making like I think today I finally tapped out, like I finally finished all of my food from it, but I just like made a fuck ton of like Greek
Mm.
food and Mediterranean food, and tonight I'm gonna make some spaghetti because like shout out to my
Joe
mom's
Pesci.
spaghetti
Oh,
and Joe
sorry.
Pesci. But but in our household, like my mom, she always, oof, that woman like always worked like crazy to
Yeah.
support her two kids, but she always made time for dinner. Like meals were very important because that was the time that we
Yes.
sat together. We exchanged stories about the day. We just talked. But for me, food is so tied to your culture, your storytelling, your own personal life experience. Like I love nothing more than when somebody is like, "Oh, I'm going to make this thing. This is the way my dad makes it." Like um our friend Ishtar has made she made me
Mm-hmm.
baklava last Christmas, and she's like, "Oh, this is
Oh.
my dad's recipe." And I was like, the fact that you are sharing this with me, whew, like amazing. So I love
Mm-hmm.
when people I love like I love food, but I also
Same.
love that food is so often tied to our stories, our families, our culture, our heritage. So my reco of the week is like if there's a particular meal that you really loved growing up as a kid, or whether you make it for yourself or you order it in, like if there's
Mm-hmm.
something that you're like, man, this was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
go get that thing, go make that thing, go order that thing. Like,
Yes.
remind yourself of your childhood, or like where you came from, or whatever
Mhm.
that may be. Like, and especially with the holidays coming up, like if you're going to a potluck or anything and you have the bandwidth, maybe bring some of that. Like, my favorite thing is
Mhm.
to bring spanakopita to like potlucks, and a lot of
Oh,
times, growing up, people were always like, what is that? Like, what did you just make? But now as an adult, people are like, oh, you made it, oh my god, and people like get really excited. So I love like sharing that piece of
yes.
my life with people. So that's my reco.
That's beautiful. I love that we all grew up to just have an appreciation of like cheese with a carbohydrate. Like that's literally cheese fries,
That's
great.
uh-huh,
Spanakopita, great. Like
uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I know I butchered the pronunciation,
No,
but
no,
like
no, you're
literally
doing great.
like give me a carb, give me a cheese. Even my friends who are lactose intolerant, they're like, I'll
Yeah.
muscle through. Like they'll
Yep.
end up in the bathroom for half an hour late
Hmm.
after, or like have to pop a bunch of lactate, but they're still like, yeah, no, cheese. Like aside from like our trauma, we also took a love of cheese with us through our growth, through our coming into
And
adulthood.
now
And I love
cheese
that
for a
for
lot of
us.
us causes a different kind of trauma, which is tummy aches, severe tummy
Or
aches. But
or heels trauma.
heels trauma?
Heels trauma. Yeah.
Oh, heels. I was thinking heels like on your foot.
On
You
your
meant
foot.
like like resolves trauma, helps you move through.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
whew.
but you can also put cheese on heels of bread.
Oh, nice. I like the connection because I was
Sponsored
very
by
much like,
cheese.
what?
This episode brought to you by cheese and a carb.
Tillamook, are you listening?
I would love for them to sponsor us or Kerrygold.
I love
Kerrygold.
I love Kergold. Okay, sorry.
Kerrygold is the frickin' shit.
So
Oh,
tasty. So tasty.
I just like anything coming out of Ireland. I'm here
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
anything. I'm 100%. I mean, I'm about to marry an Irishman, so obviously we know my love knows no bounds.
Oh,
That's my
love it.
dream is to get married in Ireland in a castle, but I can't afford it. So if anyone out there
Not yet.
has a castle or has a hookup or, has an uncle in Ireland or like whatever and can help me make this dream come true, please, I'll invite
Yeah.
you to the wedding. Like you're obviously invited.
Oh, thank you.
Let me know. Hook me up.
Oh,
Hook me up if you have a castle or something.
yeah. Or somebody with a castle.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Uh, do you have a reco for the week? Or
Castles.
castles? Love that.
Well,
Amazing.
actually, we're in my favorite season right now.
Yes. Fall, winter.
Holiday romance
Oh,
movies.
yes. Yes,
Mm,
yes, yes.
I love a fluffy little romantic Christmas movie full of plot holes. Very into it. And there is a new one on Netflix called
Mm.
A Castle for Christmas.
Oh, look at
It,
you.
it
Nice.
is, it is, I watched it last night. I plan on watching it again tonight. Oh, wait, no, I have a film class. I have a screenwriting class. I plan
Mm-hmm.
on watching it again as soon as humanly possible. But it's in Scotland.
Oh.
So everyone has Scottish accents. And
Mm-hmm.
the female lead is Brooke Shields. Fabulous, gorgeous
Damn.
woman. And the male lead, buckle up. Are you buckled up? Are
I'm
you
buckled
ready?
up.
He is someone you may know him
Mm-hmm.
from. Let me just give you like maybe a role or two he's been, or a movie or two he's been in. Um, Robin Hood, Men in Tights,
If you say
Princess
Carrie Elway,
Bride.
Carrie Elway! Ah! I love that man. I
I'm
love
so
him.
sorry, listeners, unless you also squealed. But I'm sorry that
I
we
will.
blew out your
Oh my
eardrums.
god,
Yeah,
my audio,
he's
I'm off the
I see
charts.
it. I
Sorry.
see it. It's like it really is like
I love
there
him.
is like the bear like the
I've
boundary of
broken
the
the sound
track and
barrier.
yeah, that's basically what's
Uh,
happened. But yes, he is in it
well,
and he plays a Scottish duke and his Scottish accent gives me tingles in the groin. No
I love
mustache,
that.
though.
Okay. All right.
Mhm, mhm.
Sounds good. Well,
But it's adorable. It's on Netflix, A Castle for Christmas. Highly recommend. Everybody go check it out. Again, full of plot holes, but here we are.
hey, love it. Well, thank you for that. And
Yeah. Thank
thank you,
you.
listeners, for joining us this week. We love
We
you
love
guys so
you.
much. Oh,
Shout out to all my ladies.
Ayo. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And we will
Yes,
catch you guys
please.
next week. Bye.
Bye.